Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Senator Kaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I love walking in and seeing the title of the hearing, Bipartisan Senate Budget Committee Hearing. And I appreciate that this has been a hearing and a discussion with witnesses who are really trying to explore an opportunity that has a real upside that is going to need some planning and investment. In Virginia, there's 100,000 electric vehicles on the road in my Commonwealth of 8+ million people. And those who charge at their home pay about $1 a gallon. That's what folks in Virginia are paying if they charge at their home. We need to have some advances in charging. In Richmond, where I live, a lot of people don't have driveways, apartments, or multifamily communities, so more curbside rest area. We need to make sure in the deployment of charging technologies, we're not just looking at passenger vehicles, but we're also looking at trucks. Every Volvo Mack truck that you see on the road in North America is made in Dublin, Virginia, which is in Appalachia, about 3,000 workers there. In the last 10 days, the DOE announced a $208 million investment through the Inflation Reduction Act to match an equivalent investment by the company to expand electric vehicle production. I would encourage, if anybody ever wants to do something fun, come with me to Dublin and drive an over-the-road Volvo Mack truck on their test track. It's about a 3-mile test track. You'll get in that vehicle, and it's so smooth, you think you're going 35, and I looked down at the speedometer, I was going 65. The point about fatigue was remarkable. A diesel truck just has this kind of low-grade rattle that really takes a toll on over-the-road drivers if they're in that truck for multiple hours a day, whereas the electric vehicle is as smooth as can be. And so it is going to be a kind of a fatigue health improvement for those who are doing this job. It's hard to recruit enough over-the-road drivers now. I think this is a technology that might make it a little bit easier. But in addition to the $208 million investment into the Volvo plant through the IRA, there's also been the announcement in the last year of a $100 million investment through DOE to a company called Microporous, a company that will manufacture separators for lithium-ion batteries that are necessary for the EV supply chain, and that is likely to land in rural Southside Virginia near Danville. Both Dublin, Virginia and Danville, Virginia are in economically hard-hit parts of the state. They're both in rural Virginia. Talk a little bit about how the growth of an EV supply chain could be a powerful economic development tool for rural America.
Thanks, Senator. I mean, look, my father's from Youngstown, Ohio. I grew up in Oregon in the shadow of the timber industry and forest products industry that had decayed, during my childhood. I've been hearing, politicians talking about bringing manufacturing jobs back to America literally my entire life, right? And we're finally doing it, right? We're seeing those investments now across, EVs, clean energy, batteries, semiconductors, et cetera. So we're already seeing over $140 billion of announced investment in battery manufacturing and supply chain capacity across the country, and $57 billion in EV manufacturing. That's since the infrastructure law passed. That could support over 240,000 jobs. And we all know these are more than just the direct employment, right? These are anchor employers in these industries or in these communities. And over the vast majority of those are located in rural and exurban communities or communities that are designated as energy communities by the Inflation Reduction Act. So these are exactly the communities that are seeing a renewed economic future.
Say that last piece again.
Yeah, so
the vast
majority are in rural and exurban areas, and the energy communities that have traditionally relied on fossil fuel extraction, processing, or transportation that were designated by the IRA.
This is a hearing about electric vehicles, but the same week that the announcement was made about DOE supporting the manufacture of electric over-the-road vehicles in Dublin, there was also an IRA-driven announcement of $100 million to a facility that is opening up in Chesapeake, Virginia, which is in the Hampton Roads area, metropolitan area, but it's going to manufacture in the United States for the first time the cables that connect to offshore wind and put the power into the grid. All of this has been manufactured overseas because we didn't have an offshore wind industry. Now, because of the IRA, we will be manufacturing those cables, and not just for use in U.S. offshore wind. Those cables, and the company is a Korean company that's investing in Virginia, will be manufactured in the United States and then sold to offshore wind development all over the United States. Just another example of an IRA success story. Okay, now here's a personal story that's embarrassing. I got stuck in my car for 27 hours in January of 22, driving from Richmond to DC. And it was 18 degrees when the sun was up. It was colder overnight. And it was a freak snowstorm, and the signs on the highway said proceed with caution. They didn't say turn around, go home. They said proceed with caution. I proceeded with caution, and I was stuck for 27 hours. My senior senator, Mark Warner, said I would have gotten SEAL Team 6 to come out and get me. You sat there with a Dr. Pepper and an orange for 27 hours. There was a lot of concern about what would happen to electric vehicles. I had, in a gas vehicle, I had to, run the engine for 10 minutes with the heat at full blast, turn it off until the car got too cold an hour later, and do it again to try to take my half tank of gas and make it work. And there was a lot of questions about what would happen to electric vehicles that night. And I've never introduced into the Senate record an article from Kelley Blue Book, but I just thought there's the first time for everything. Kelley Blue Book did a study. They reached out to people who had been stuck in that snowstorm, who were driving Teslas or other electric vehicles. And they found out that they actually performed better than gas vehicles, and that the way electric vehicle engines work, you can operate just a small portion of the engine that runs the heater. You don't have to have the engine running for the whole car. It does drain the reserve, but very slowly. When finally the traffic started to move, it was blocked by the fact that so many vehicles had run out of gas that even trying to move on the ice-driven roads, you were kind of like a Jenga game. You were kind of moving here, there, and everywhere to kind of get around them. But it turned out that the electric vehicles performed quite well in those adverse conditions. And so, Mr. Chair, if I could, let me introduce this article from Kelley Blue Book, I-95 Traffic Nightmare, What If You Were Stuck in an Electric Car for 24 Hours, into the record.
Without objection, it shall be entered into the record.